Alright, UFN 13, I do believe this is. A little late, but the predictions are coming your way. These are my thoughts, of course. First up, this is the card that's tomorrow, just in case you're wondering. Maximus Aurelio versus Ryan Roberts. I'm taking Maximus in the first round by submission because Ryan Roberts... I dug up a couple fights. I had not seen him, but I did dig up some video footage. He's not a bad fighter, but... I mean, we are talking about Marcus Aurelio, at one time a top 10 lightweight. Not anymore, but I'd still say maybe top 30. Marcus has got great ground skills. He should be able to take Ryan Roberts down and just pretty easily work for the submission. The other thing that kind of could void this is Marcus goes into lazy Marcus mode and lays and prays a decision. But either way, taking Marcus Aurelio. Next up, Jeff Cox versus Manvel Gambiran. I'm kind of torn between submission and unanimous decision on this one. Jeff Cox is a decent striker and decent all-around skills, but he's a bit old. He's not particularly large. I mean, he's tall, but he's not particularly large, if you understand my meaning for a lightweight. Manny should be able to overpower him. Manny, I honestly think, could very easily submit him, but Manny sometimes goes into a bit of a conservative mode where he didn't do much, but I am going to make it second round tap out for Manny. That's my prediction. That's what I'm going with. Manny's opponent on the tough finale, of course, Nate Diaz going up against Kurt Pellegrino. Kurt Pellegrino is a better wrestler than Nate. Theoretically, I think he's a more natural technical striker. Nate, I think, has a reach advantage, and he does have this knack for being okay on the feet, but I think Pellegrino can outstrike him, can out-wrestle him. I think he can also out-grapple him. And all together, I think this leads to Pellegrino. A lot of people are saying by decision. I tend to agree with that, but I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb, maybe just to be a little bit unique. I'm going to predict a third round stoppage for Kurt Pellegrino via TKO due to strikes. Next up, we have Anthony Johnson versus Tommy Spear. Both these guys have base in wrestling. Anthony Johnson's added a lot of striking to his game, training with the Shootbox USA camp. Anthony Johnson is not coming in at short notice. I honestly think this is an easy fight to call that some people are kind of mulling over and giving to Tommy Spear. I think Anthony Johnson wins. I think he is better on the feet. I think he's a good enough wrestler to fight, at least keep it standing for enough of the time to get a knockout. And Tommy Spear's stand-up it's okay, but he does have a bit of a gap there that you can take advantage of, and I think Anthony Johnson will. And Anthony Johnson wins this one, second round stoppage. Next up, Roman Michichian versus George Sotiropoulos. Kind of easy to call, I'd say. I mean, Roman is very tough. He's got good ground skills. He's not bad on his feet. But I think Sotiropoulos is just that much better on the ground. I think he's better on the feet. I think he's a better wrestler, although Roman's a better judoka. So a bit of wrestling versus judo, but I think George also has a reach advantage. He's a more natural welterweight, something Roman Michichian really isn't. He's more of a natural lightweight. I think Sotiropoulos keeps the distance and can pretty much outpoint him for most of the match, and I think he finishes him in the second with strikes, either on the ground or on the feet. But George Sotiropoulos, second round stoppage. Next up, we have Clay the Carpenter Guida versus Sammy Chavo. I'm going to go with a second round tap out for Clay Guida. He's not a great submission guy, but Sammy Chavo is very prone to being submitted. Clay is pretty good at submitting people. He's very good at keeping the pace up. He's a solid wrestler. Should be able to take Sammy down kind of at will. Sammy's a good striker, but we've seen in the past that although Guida has an ability to absorb damage on the feet. We saw that against Dean Thomas considerably, where Dean really threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at him, and we wound up with Clay still in there and losing a decision, but making a decision. I just don't think Sammy, with his lack of ability to stop a takedown, his lack of ability to grapple from the bottom, is going to be all that much of trouble for Clay Guida. Next up, Josh Neer moving down to 155 against Dean Thomas. Josh Neer's a bit bigger. They're both very well rounded. I think Dean's probably better at everything by just a little bit. Maybe not wrestling, but he's a better striker and he is a better grappler. That being said, Josh Neer, very hard to finish. He was finished by Drew Fickett. I think that's the only person in the UFC to finish him, I think. He has lost more fights than he's won. He did defeat Melvin Gillard and Joe Stevenson. He has lost to Drew Fickett, Josh Berkman, Nick Diaz. I think that's it. I could be missing someone though. Taking Dean Thomas by unanimous decision. I think he just outclasses him in a lot of areas, but I don't think he finishes Josh Neer. I don't think I really ever predicted for him to be finished. I mean, he is a very good fighter. Well, not very good, but he's good. He's incredibly tough. He should be able to grind. He should be able to hold in there and basically lose a decision. Next, we have Frank Edgar, Gray Maynard. Battle of two wrestlers could be very interesting. Could not be so interesting. Could be late and pretty fast. Edgar is the better wrestler and the better striker, technically. Maynard, though, has more power. He's stronger. He's bigger. He could turn that into his advantage, but I'm one who always goes with technique will defeat explosiveness, and that's why I'm going with Frank Edgar. Also, Gray Maynard tends to fade a little bit later in the fights. I don't think he finishes Edgar really quickly. You'll see this. I mean, against Joe Varys, he looked good. Against Rob Emerson, he looked good. But this was early on. He looked good against Brandon Melendez in the first round on the Tough Reality Show. And then Melendez looked a lot better after that because it looks like Maynard fades. Now, I'm not going to say that he still has that problem, but I think this will be a prolonged fight. And I think in a prolonged fight, I've got to take Edgar by unanimous decision fairly easily. James Irvin is an underdog against Houston Alexander. I don't really agree with that because I think Irvin's a little bit better. I think this might go to the second round. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit and say it does end in the second round. James Irvin's got better reach than Houston Alexander. I think he is a better striker. Houston Alexander, he fights... I mean, he beat Keith Jardine. He beat Alessio Sakara. Jardine overlooked him. Sakara has shown a tendency to be beaten by brawlers, and that's what Houston Alexander is. He very much is in your face, and he cuts down his own reach with his very looping punches. I think that Irvin's a better striker. I think Irvin's better on the ground. I think this is the first time I've ever said that James Irvin's better on the ground than somebody. I think he's a better wrestler, so I think if he wants to, I think he can take him down even. But I think he wins by pointing him up on the feet and eventually finishing him, because Alexander, he did get very rifled by Keith Jardine. He did show good recovery time, but he doesn't seem to be he doesn't seem to have the greatest chin, but he just has good recovery time, which can usually save him, but I don't think it does this time. Next up, we have Tim Boach versus Matt Hamill. I'm taking Tim Boach via second round stoppage. Both men are primarily wrestlers. Matt Hamill's coming off of a relatively serious injury, though, to his ACL. He's not quite the wrestler, in my opinion, that Vladimir Matyushenko is, and Matyushenko had to work very hard to get takedowns on Tim Boach. I think Tim Boach is better on the feet. I think he can keep it standing. I think he stops Matt Hamill in the second round, because we haven't really seen Matt Hamill against a guy who has any kind of wrestling base that's anywhere near his own. We saw him fight on the show, of course, Mike Nichols, who does not appear to have a great wrestling base. We saw him fight Michael Bisping, who, of course, we kind of have never seen really a good wrestling base out of Michael Bisping. Seth Petrozelli's, I guess, would be the closest. Well, Rex Hallman does have an excellent wrestling base, which was his second win, and Jesse Forbes. Jesse Forbes, though, is a smaller guy. He got bullied around a little bit. Rex Hallman's an older guy and gassed pretty badly. And, of course, Bisping, not the greatest takedown defense. Seth Petrozelli is kind of probably the best win Hamill has. And I don't know. I just think Bosch can... I just think that he's not quite the wrestler that Vladimir Matyushenko is, basically. And Vladdy had a hard time taking him down. Alright, the last two fights, I'm going to have to do them quick because I've only got like 50 seconds left. Thiago Alves, Carl Parisian, winner of this could probably move into a title shot unless Alves wins, because I think with Alves having lost to John Fitch would remain first in line, whereas if Carl beats Alves, he might be the guy. I'm taking the Heat by unanimous decision just because I don't know if you can finish Carl. I think Carl can take down, if he comes in prepared, and he should, because Thiago Alves is a very legitimate opponent. He should be able to take him down. He should be able to hold him down, but I don't think he finishes him. Next up, Joe Lozon, Kenny Florian. I'm taking Florian via TKO. Likely do a cut because of those elbows in the second round, because he cuts people. What can I say? Joe Lozon's a better wrestler. I think but I think Kenny's a better grappler and a better striker, and he's a little more suited to 155, whereas Joe is a bit more of a 145er. Anyways, that's my recap of UFN 13. Keep it cool.